Mr. Secretary General, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I stand before you today not as a petitioner seeking favors, not as a student awaiting instruction, not as a patient requiring diagnosis. I come as an equal. Look around this room, marvel at its design. This hall was built to amplify voices, to ensure that the smallest nation could be heard as clearly as the mightiest power. Yet some voices have been systematically muted, not by acoustic failure, but by deliberate choice. Today, that ends. I speak to you from a land whose very name means the country of honorable people, Burkina Faso, a nation rich in gold, in culture and courage, yet classified as least developed by metrics we never created. What does it mean to be developed in a world where development is measured by how thoroughly you have replaced your identity with someone else's? What does it mean to be advanced when advancement requires the extraction of your resources for another's benefit? Let me tell you a story not taught in your universities or discussed in your policy forums. When my grandmother was born, her village had sustained itself for centuries through systems of agriculture, governance, and knowledge transfer that Western anthropologists later claimed to discover. Her community fed itself, governed itself, healed itself. Then came development. Today, that same village imports wheat it cannot afford, governed by systems designed in faraway capitals, dependent on medicines patented by corporations that view feeling as intellectual property. Is this progress, or is it the most sophisticated form of conquest ever devised? A great deception of our time is not that inequality exists. It is the fiction that the current global order is natural, inevitable, or just. Look at this Security Council that claims to safeguard international peace. 5 permanent members, none from Africa, Latin America, or the Southern Hemisphere. 5 nations with veto power over the aspirations of billions. This is not global governance. This is imperial afterglow. Today we are told that Africa faces 3 great crises: security, governance, and development. But I ask you, who manufactured the weapons fueling our conflicts? Who trained and funded the architects of our coups? Who designed economic systems that ensure our resources create wealth elsewhere, while leaving holes in our earth and our children hungry? When an African nation seeks to control its resources, they call it nationalization. When we seek to protect our farmers, they call it market distortion. When we choose allies outside the prescribed options, they call it strategic threat. Why is sovereignty a right for some nations and a privilege for others? In Burkina Faso, we no longer accept this framework. We reject the premise that our advancement must come through channels designed during colonial times and maintained for neocolonial purposes. We are not withdrawing from the global community. We are demanding its transformation. To the nations who have appointed themselves our tutors in democracy, your lessons ring hollow when you embrace dictators who serve your interests while sanctioning elected leaders who challenge them. To the international financial institutions that claim to lift us from poverty, your structural adjustments have structured our disadvantage. Your loans have become leashes. To the security alliances that promise protection, we have seen how quickly principles are abandoned when strategic interests shift. We have watched peacekeeping missions that never create peace, but never seem to end. Let me be clear, Burkina Faso does not seek isolation. We seek genuine partnership, not patronage disguised as partnership, not exploitation disguised as opportunity, but cooperation between equals. What would such partnership look like? It would recognize that Africa's 1.4 billion people deserve more than 2 rotating seats on a Security Council that makes life and death decisions affecting our continent. It would acknowledge that debt accumulated under dictatorships propped up by foreign powers is not sovereign debt, but a form of financial hostage-taking. It would accept that military bases on African soil must serve African security, not foreign strategic aims. It would understand that climate justice means those who built wealth by burning carbon must pay the greater price in addressing its consequences. Some in this room view Africa through the lens of problems to be solved or opportunities to be seized. I invite you to see us differently, as a continent finding its voice after centuries of enforced silence. The silence is over. 3 days ago, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso formalized a confederation, the Alliance of Sahel States. This is not merely a regional bloc. It is the beginning of a new approach to African unity, one built not on colonial borders or external validation, but on shared purpose and mutual respect. We did not seek permission for this step. We did not submit our constitution for approval from former colonial powers. We moved forward as sovereign nations determining our own path. This is the future of Africa, not a continent that begs for scraps from the global table, but one that builds its own table. Not nations competing for foreign investment by offering their people as cheap labor, but societies cooperating to elevate all Africans in dignity. To the youth of Africa watching this address, whether in urban centers with reliable internet or in villages where a single phone might be shared to access this moment, I speak directly to you. You are not the problem. You are the solution. Your dreams are not too big. The systems designed to contain them are too small. Your anger is not irrational. It is the natural response to injustice. Your future is not elsewhere. It is in building an Africa that no longer exports its wealth, whether in resources or in brilliant minds. The path will not be easy. Those who have benefited from Africa's exploitation will not simply step aside. They will deploy their familiar weapons, economic pressure, political isolation, media distortion, and when those fail, more direct methods. But we have something stronger than their weapons: historical necessity. The old order is not sustainable, not for Africa, not for the planet, not even in the long term for those who currently benefit from it. I am not here to threaten. I am here to clarify. Africa's dignity is not negotiable. Africa's resources belong first to Africans. Africa's voice will no longer be politely ignored. We extend our hand in true partnership to all nations that can accept these principles, but we will no longer extend our neck to those who cannot. For too long, this forum has heard Africa's representatives speak the language of supplication, carefully worded appeals that offend no one and change nothing. Today, you have heard something different, not because I am different, but because Africa is different. The continent is awakening not to rage, but to clarity, not to isolation, but to selective engagement on terms that honor our peoples. The question for this assembly is simple. Will you evolve with us toward a more just international order? Or will you cling to hierarchies of power that history has already condemned? The choice is yours, but the days when Africa would accept whatever choice you made are over. Mr. Secretary General, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I thank you for your attention. The people of Burkina Faso, the people of the Sahel, the people of Africa, wait for your answer not in words, but in actions.